not ashamed to talk about cancer. I'm not embarrassed by it. Some people, you have to cope with it in your own way.
Can you explain to us what you were holding in
the one I'm holding in the photograph is a calculator, a euro calculator. I mean, I spent, I suppose, 37 years as an accountant. So a calculator, my life has been built around calculators. And I'm a figures man. I mean, anybody in patient voice, when they're talking about something, somebody will talk about a budget. Tom Hope puts up his hand and says, I'm the budget. And in fact, and that is my life. It has driven my life. I'm a numbers man. So I've never been able to get away from it, even though it's not the primary thing of my life. It's literally, I've been around it all the time. So really, that's you.
What about Liam? What about this?
Yeah, so this is a card that my oldest daughter is 23 at the moment. So I was asked, I don't know, about 15 years ago to go into her school for a science week to do like a science demo. And I don't know, she was probably 7 or 8, and I don't know, did the usual thing of doing the liquid nitrogen experiments, etc. But I did this particular one, which was you get a piece of sausage and you put it in a rubber glove and you stick it in liquid nitrogen, and then get a hammer and hammer your finger, and the squeals of kind of from the girls about, because it looks like your finger is smashed. And I got this card afterwards. I just remembered just certain things from that day.
The thing is now that's, you're sitting here with Liam Gallagher, who is a cancer researcher in the Conway Institute in UCD. There's a relationship here between the two of you, and your role in it is to be a patient advocate. What is that?
The patient advocate is being prepared to share your experience. Whatever experience in either diagnosis or treatment or post-treatment, where you're prepared to contribute your life experience to researchers, some of them who are the age of your son or daughter, who would have no understanding of the life journey that you have done, or that, and you feel that you can, you can share your view with them, to say, look, I'm a patient, I want to see improvement in the diagnostic treatment. You are the key to improving it. You mightn't realise it, but it's to come through you. And I can share you my story of being diagnosed. In most cases, a lot of people who are diagnosed with cancer have no symptoms. Like, they go into the doctor for something, a pain in the back or a pain in the ear or something, and they send you for a test. With my thing, the doctor sent me for a blood test. I didn't know what it was for. He came back, he said to me, your blood test has shown elevated. I want you to see a urologist. I went along to the urologist, not knowing what I was going to do. The urologist sort of said to me, look, you know why you're here. So that is something that a lot of my young children would have no experience, wouldn't understand that's how oftentimes cancers are actually picked up. And then when you're told, I mean, people will tell you, when you go in and you're sitting, normally the doctor sort of says, when you're coming back for the result of the test, will you bring a partner? Now, in most cases you say, what the hell is that? But then when you go in and you sit through the thing and he brings you through, he says, by the way, he says, this test does indicate you have cancer. After that, you hear nothing. Absolutely hear nothing. And in fact, anybody who's been diagnosed will tell you that. So that's why they've always encouraged to do it. So having that, by sharing that to people, you feel that you're giving them an insight into the process of diagnosis and treatment. And almost you feel by encouraging them to do what they can, and anything you can do, even when they're writing grant applications, sometimes they want to be able to sort of, you say, look, can you express it in simple English? I mean, I'm an accountant. So, I mean, I talk about creditors, debtors, and you'll say, what in the name of God is that? And to a large degree, the same thing applies to science. There's terminology that isn't familiar to non-scientists. And you try and help people to explain in layman's term. And in most cases, they have great ideas, but when you read it first, you say, well, what does it mean? What's the impact of this research? How is it going to benefit me or benefit somebody else? And they know the story, but it's a question to get them to express it in simple English. And in most cases, when you go to these presentations, I'm blown away with how they eventually express it, having worked with people in patient voice to help them to simplify it and to explain it in layman's terms.
I don't think there's a family in the country that hasn't been affected by cancer, so probably everybody actually knows somebody who's suffering from it.
But I think what it does is it recalibrates. Like I've been working in cancer research for over 30 years. I suppose what it does, it just refocuses the mind about what you're actually doing. Because often, like ultimately, yes, cancer research in a lot of cases, unless you're directly patient facing, is somewhat abstract in terms of its approach. You're dealing with kind of abstract concepts and kind of, replicas of the disease, but they're not actually the disease. So it actually allows you to stand back and say, okay, is this appropriate to address that question or not? And actually confront it a bit. And even someone who's been working in cancer research for 30 years, it's very important that I do that on a continuous basis. But I think as what Tom has indicated, it's great that we have, when I was kind of, I suppose, training in cancer research, I certainly wouldn't have considered, or I wasn't really exposed to patients during my early research career. I think it's fantastic with the patient voice in cancer research that you have this emerging group of cancer researchers who are kind of, it's almost inbuilt from the start. Mm-hmm. And that's what's amazing. It's this kind of interaction that's happening, and it's actually benefiting them. Not only their research, but their ability to communicate that research, because that's part of it as well. It's like, I suppose what the COVID pandemic has shown is that research is important. People have become more familiar with the terminology of PCR and antigens, which they're the terminology that we work with in our day-to-day basis, but in cancer. But now the general public is like an expert in that area. Yeah. But at least now you can have those conversations with people and say, like, actually, what am I doing in the lab? Like even the concept of vaccination, the vaccination techniques which are used against COVID were derived from cancer research. Okay. So it was an RNA vaccine. BioNTech were actually developing cancer vaccines. And what's great is now they've shown that it works in humans for infectious disease. Now that's greatly accelerated its effort now in treatment of cancer. So that's now probably the next wave of revolution is vaccination against cancer.